Okay, let's talk a bit about assessment. So we begin each session with a visual and a movement assessment. And we do this through the lens of the tensegrity system. And now our way of assessing the body is not about identifying what's wrong or diagnosing, but it's about getting an understanding of the story of the body. What are the main patterns that you see? What are the main shifts, tilts, twists, or imbalances that you observe both visually and through movement? And it's also a way for the client to check in with themselves and get a sense of how they're moving. So assessment really begins the moment the client walks through the door. We're observing how are they carrying themselves, how are they walking, what's their overall energy like in their body. This alone can give us a lot of information about what's going on for someone in their entire system. And then I always like to observe just visually in standing. So I'll ask the client to stand in a neutral standing position with feet about hips distance apart. Just notice how they naturally stand without really cueing them too much, and just see what you notice. So observing from the front, just how are their shoulders lined up? How are their hips and their ribs lined up? What do you notice about their feet? Does one foot want to turn out or in? Does it seem like they're standing on one leg more than the other leg? What do you notice from the front view? And then you could come around and observe them from the side. What do you notice about their spine? What do you notice about this view? And then have them turn to the back. Again, just simply, what do you notice? Sometimes I like to place my hands on shoulders, on ribs, and then on hips, just to get a sense of the evenness there. Does one side feel rotated forward or back? Does one side feel shifted side to side? Just what is calling you in about their standing structure? Okay, and then from there, we'll go into a bit of a movement assessment. Now, I always like to ask my client, what are you here for? What are you wanting to work on in your body? And people will tell you all the things that they want to work on, the areas that they feel are tight or restricted or a bit sore. So I always take that into consideration as well. But I like to begin with some global movements. So these are basic movements that encompass a lot of different areas of the body. So I often like to begin with a simple overhead reach. So just ask them to lift their arms up and bring them down. And I just want to notice how they do that. Does one side feel like it can go a lot more than the other side? Do they feel any discomfort anywhere in this movement? What is their range from the side? Does it seem like they can easily move their arms up, or are they really using their back or their spine in order to get their arms up? So all these things are good to know. And then from here, I may ask them to bring their arms back behind them to get a sense of that global movement through the front line of the body. So you can have them lift their arms up, have them notice how it feels as well as what it looks like, and then have them press their arms back. And again, notice how it feels, notice what it looks like. From there, another great global movement that encompasses a lot of areas is a squat. So I may ask my client, just go into a squat however you like to squat. There's a lot of different squat techniques out there, so we don't need to get super specific. I just want to see how they squat. And I'll watch from the front. I'll notice what's happening at the hip, the knee, the foot. Are they able to be aware of that alignment? I may ask them how that feels for them. I may ask them, where do you feel any resistance areas? For a lot of people, they may feel resistance in the hips, in the front, maybe the low back, maybe at the ankle, maybe everywhere. This is really tight for somebody. I also would want to watch from the back, noticing what they're doing with their spine. Are they able to keep their spine long, or is the spine rounding a bit? Right? And this is just giving us information about where their restrictions may be. Okay, and then from there, I always like to explore some spinal movement. So I'll often begin, the hands can come behind the head here, or if the client's not able to do that with their shoulders, the arms can stay down, and we'll have them lift up into a bit of a spinal extension, and then have them round forward in a bit of spinal flexion. And I like to involve the knees here, bending the knees, as that helps to take a bit of pressure off the back line. So we inhale as we open up into our spinal extension, and exhale into our spinal flexion. And this movement here, we're looking for if they can actually move their spine. Some people will want to fold at the hips. That's a sign that maybe their spine is really restricted and they actually don't know how to move their spine. Sometimes they might just need a little reminder about that. Okay, then after flexion and extension, I'll explore some lateral flexion. So moving side to side, trying to keep the hips relatively still so that this becomes really a movement of the spine and not of the whole lateral line. Okay, and then from there we can explore a bit of rotation. So just seeing where their spine wants to rotate. Again, you could do this with arms down or arms crossed. This one I like to observe from both the front and the back. And sometimes I'll even hold their hips so that we're getting a really true sense of how that spine is moving. From there, you can zero in on the body on more local areas. If anywhere stood out for you in the global movements, you can hone in on more local movements. So for example, if one shoulder seemed quite stuck, you can have them do shoulder cars on one side. So the shoulder car is, we start with the arm forward, lifting it up, rotating that joint, coming around to the back and through. Or maybe even just a shoulder roll or any other type of single arm movement in different directions. Have your client explore and you can see and they can feel. If you want to zero in on the hips, we can explore simply lifting one leg and the other leg. This also gives us a sense of their balance and how they're stabilizing and organizing themselves on their standing leg. The hip car is a great isolated hip movement where we're exploring all the ways that the hip joint was designed to move. So we can lift up for our hip flexion, externally rotate, open to the side, internally rotate, come around to the back into a bit of extension and come through. I often will have my client hold on to something here so that they can balance, whether it's holding onto the wall, holding onto a chair, so that they can be stable and really just work on that hip joint movement. So this is a really good one to both warm up the hip and give them some awareness of how their hip is moving, but also for you as a practitioner to get a sense of what their hip can do in an active range of motion before you go work on it passively. Okay, and then some more local movements could be circling the ankle, maybe exploring some lunging movements. Yeah, maybe exploring some rib movements, side to side, front and back, maybe exploring some neck movements. So basically, whatever you see stands out to you as being restricted in the global movements, you can then hone in on these more local areas. And definitely use your background, your knowledge, if you're a personal trainer, if you're a yoga teacher, if you have a background in dance or any other kind of movement, use what you know about movement to help you understand your client's movement. And ultimately, this assessment is for you to get a sense of how their body's moving, how their body's feeling, the overall story and pattern that you see and feel. And then you'll get them on the table and explore that deeper. And then after the session, you might want to come back and review some of these movements. Do some of these movements again afterwards and notice, is there any change in how it looks, in their range, and also, more importantly, how it feels. Because this is really about how it feels for the client rather than their end range. All right, so hope that's helpful. This is an overview of our assessment process. Now start practicing.